Who here has not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Has anybody
Great
not
book.
read it?
I like the cash flow quadrant too.
Oh, yeah. The cash flow quadrant
I
is
think
great.
I like that one better, actually.
But
Yeah.
what I found interesting too, and I'm not sure if it's in the actual Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I read his like investor book too, because once you get to that point where you've got time and money, there's just this totally different world of opportunity that gets opened up to you. But you don't have the time to acknowledge it if you're working in a job, and like you don't have the money to be able to take advantage of it if you're not having something working without you actively being
Yeah,
in it.
you need to be in
So-
that I quadrant.
Yeah.
You got to be in that investor quadrant somehow. You got to get yourself there.
Yeah. The business owner, when you're in the business owner position, you are able to be more creative, but it's not always about money, right? So like being a business owner, like you said, gives you the time. So being able to spend time with the big thing is a lot of job owners could make the same or more working for somebody else,
Right.
but they don't know how to take the number 2 position.
Yep.
So you have to know that whether you're a number 1 or you're a number 2, you have to know your place. I worked for a company. I subcontracted for a company for 4 years where I was the number 2, and helped to grow this company to a really high level, and was getting paid, more money than I'd ever been paid before, and more money than anybody in that position had ever been paid before. The work environment. So I was a business owner. Then I contracted to this company to run their business as general manager for their company, and then I left that company because they wouldn't open the doors for me to be a partner in the company. So I went back and started my current company that you see now, and that was about 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, when you see the current manifestation of my business. But if I left today, I could make more money than I would working for them. But the work environment, there was some things in there. I don't want to bore you with my personal situation, but there was just things there that I didn't feel comfortable with anymore. I felt like the business had taken a turn that was maybe not as moral as we like to do.
Has anybody ever said to you that maybe you're a more effective number 2 than a number 1?
Yeah, well, I know that. Well, I've done both, and I've been effective in both areas. I'm comfortable with either one. Like in our endeavor right now, in our endeavor, I'm comfortable with being a number 2 in this new business that we're doing, as far as the cold calling business. As far as this other business goes, in my current business, I know in that business I'm a good number 1. I have things that I need to tackle and so on, and that's another conversation for another day. But I've been a number 1 in this business. I've developed 3 different companies in this same space,
Yep.
right? This specific air conditioning or remodeling space, and been the person that was responsible for the growth, and then was able to exit the business. So I know I'm comfortable there, but you have to be able to. But I'm not comfortable like in this other. Again, if you want to do more than one business, sometimes you'll be the number 2. Sometimes you'll be the number 10. Like if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be an investor. When you talk about being in the I quadrant, some of the most I have 2 really high level investors that I've had a chance to spend a lot of time with. Big $1 billion portfolio investors and different businesses. One of my friends had 99 businesses 2 years ago that he was running. So seeing him maneuver and so on showed me that there's a certain way, and in his businesses, there's often that he was the number 3, the number 4, and he has a mentor who was a seed funder for like Amazon and for these big companies, 3 of the largest companies, PayPal, Amazon, and I don't know, one of the other big 3, and my friend knows to take a number 2 to that man, to the guy who is the mega investor. So a lot of business owners get trapped in their business as a job owner when they really aren't a number 1, or they're only a number 1 in their own world.
Well, and I think, number 1 or number 2, kind of the definition of what being that business owner to you is really important, because there's so many vehicles to go about it. We all 4 of us have wildly different businesses. They kind of overlap here and there, but we're all going about getting to our specific goals in different ways. So the definition, because you said it yourself, like money at some point doesn't really matter. $10,000 a month to one person could be totally sufficient, where another person needs $1 million.
Mhm.
So there's not one right answer, but what does the vehicle of getting to be a business owner look like for each of you guys?
And if they want to be that business owner as well too. So
Mhm.
kind of like
Yeah.
what Tone was saying, Okay, so it's evaluating what role do you want to be in, because a lot of us business owners, like you said, yeah, you could take time off, you can go on vacation, but your brain never stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might be on vacation, but your brain is on 24/7. If something happens, you've got to answer whether you're on vacation or not. Whereas if you're a job owner and you're technically on vacation, yeah, you know, you don't necessarily have to respond.
Black,
You
that's you flipped it.
I think
Job owner has to respond. Business owner necessarily doesn't have to.
Yeah, because he's going to have people in place to actually
Yeah,
take care of
it's
that.
same. Yeah, you just had them flip flop.
so.
Well, and to Heather's point, but like for me, building a business is building a business, not a job. I knew the difference going in. I don't know if I ever used those terms necessarily when I first started, but I knew that I was going in a direction that I was going to build a corporation that would run without me and actually run better without me. A good example of that is the hiring side. When I hired Abby, she took it to a whole other level of what I'm able to do now, and she does it better than I ever did it. And that's what you want as a business owner. You want to hire people who are better than you at what you're doing because it elevates everything that you're doing.
Yeah, my recent failure of growing my business, because I've made three hard fought attempts to grow the business, and when I say that, I mean I've invested a lot of capital to grow the business, right? So I hired these people that I knew were great at each individual position, expecting them to do what Abby did for Mark, who was a stranger to Mark. So I hired people that I knew were successful, that I knew I would call them friends. I hired them because I knew them, I trusted them. I was afraid to hire people I didn't trust, right, or that I didn't know. I wanted sure thing because I was gambling a lot of money on these positions. You know, weekly salaries, 70,000 plus for 4 different positions early last year we hired, which is that's $280,000 commitment, bare minimum, right, without bonuses and everything else. So, one of the things I've learned is that sometimes you have better results with strangers. Like Mark did when he found Abby, or like we found Dennis, because we're talking about people that need context. So there are people that work in Mark's company for hiring the VAs, and Dennis works for me we hired him through the VA company, and he's now in charge of developing the cold caller business that Mark and I are starting together. But these are 2 people that were on the other side of the world, literally. They're in the Philippines, that when given the opportunity, took the ball and ran with it. And that's what you need to be able to grow a business.
Well, but to touch on that too, because it's not about abdication. We got to be careful of that. It's not like, well, I hired you, I expect you to go do this. It's like I meet with my VAs.
Oh, yeah.
When I first started up, I was meeting with them twice a day, sometimes more than that when it came to training. It's like I never took that assumptive stance that, hey, I hired you, now go do. It was always, I'm walking with you through this. Like Almira, my first one in August. She's now my COO. She's running operations for me. Well, she's earned that, but we walk that together. So it's never, you got to be real careful about abdicating that responsibility.
I think that's huge because when people talk about like building wealth, we hear passive income a lot. How do we create passive income? And the truth is, the first step, I think, is recognizing there is no passive
There's no
income.
passive
There's
income.
none. It doesn't matter if you're in stocks. It doesn't matter if you're in real estate. It doesn't matter if you're in business. It's leveraged income. It's how are you leveraging your income? And there's different vehicles.
Because somebody's working.
Somebody's working, and you could
I
be
agree.
building a team like you guys are. And for me, like I'm a business coach. I look at my business and I recognize that it's going to be really hard to scale my business because I can't leverage coaching. That is something that me and my clients have as a
I hear
one-on-one
they're cloning
relationship.
people in Mexico.
Cloning people. I don't want to do.
We can
I've
clone
already
you.
done that with my 2 little daughters that look just like me.
Stormtroopers.
But
yeah, stormtroopers.
as a solopreneur, which I would firmly put myself
like
in the
that.
S
I like
quadrant, right? I need to, if I want to be a business owner, my thought is, how do I create the vehicle to make myself a business owner? Because I love business coaching. It's my passion. But I recognize that it's a hard to leverage business. So I look at different vehicles that I can grow along with my business coaching, and I'll have to give it time and attention. But what can I give, a few hours a week rather than 80, 90 hours a week to leverage my time and attention?
All right, Heather, we're back in now that
Back
we
in
got our
line,
tech-
Pick
tech
up
issue.
where we left off.
So what you were saying is, to develop to when what Mark was saying as far as abdicating or letting some, just giving it up, and the way that you, because we've seen like John Maxwell and some of these bigger business coaching companies scale this.
Yeah.
But the way they scale it is the way that every business scales. It's process documentation and system development. But I definitely think it's good to go back before we get into that, because that's a whole other thing. Is that, we talked about how money can be important to some people and others. The big thing about any of this stuff and your time and your money is the goal setting aspect of it. And all of us have been to the class that says take it out of your head, put it on paper, write it down. Everybody's seen that. Everybody who's been in business long enough has been told by somebody, you got to write your goals down. But there's levels that have been that's I heard that first in the early 90s, right? And here we are 30 years later, and now that concept has been taken. We use in our business the PPFs, the personal, professional, and financial goal model, where we find out the 3 different aspects of life: personal, professional, financial, what it is that we really want, get those goals laid out, and then turn those goals into goals that are defined. We call them SMART goals. And then from there, holding yourself accountable, that's the business owner's job, right? And then from there, everybody else, it's putting in systems and
that's something that actually you've helped with on my side. Is when I'm thinking about systems and processes, it's I have to develop the systems and processes, but that isn't necessarily the case.
He's saying you to Heather, not to me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing with the systems and processes is sometimes your brain doesn't work like that. I work with a lot of, if anybody's read the book Rocket Fuel, that visionary type, I see the big picture. I see these crazy new directions that the business can go in. And a lot of the times when you have that visionary view of your business, it's hard to connect that vision to your reality right now. How are we going to make it happen? What's the most efficient way to do it? And sometimes you've got someone on your team who can do it for you, You're going to hire this person. You're going to train them. Can you just get them to write everything that they're learning down instead of you having to sit there and write it all down before you train them to do it? It's a very small change, but it makes a big
That's
difference.
that's how I looked at it, though, Tone. Before that conversation with Heather, I was like, oh, I got to create another system and process. And she's like, no, let's just have so-and-so do it. And it was like a huge moment of clarity for me, which it was very freeing. So I still remember how that felt. It felt awesome.
Yeah.
What do you?
That's the
So
goal.
Just bringing on the idea and outsourcing that to the rest of your team. Go ahead though with what you're saying.